Welcome to another edition of the Long Game Podcast. Today's guest, wow, this is a true pleasure right here. Feeling very starstruck on this podcast. Kolten Wong, two-time Gold Glover, 11-year Major League veteran, UH Circle of Honor inductee, one of the greatest players to ever come out of Hawaii. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I appreciate the intro. That's quite the honor. I appreciate it.
It's all true, though, man. I mean, so many people look up to you within not just the baseball community, but within the local sports community. So to be able to have you here, sit down, talk story, let's settle in. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Earlier this year, you officially announced your retirement. The festivities that we saw at Les Murakami Stadium. How about this? How does it feel to be back home? And how would you describe, I guess, the current season of life you're in right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things everybody talks about is there's chapters in life, right? And I feel like baseball kind of closed that chapter last year. And after having like a year and a half off, you know, it's finally like settled. So yeah, I'm in the chapter of life now of having, you know, a beautiful family. I have my wife and my two boys that I get to spend every day with and enjoy. So it's been fun.
Yeah. And, you know, to be able to see your kids grow up and be present and everything, there's nothing like that, right?
Nothing, man, nothing. Just be able to be there and, you know, have the ability to have created the life that we've created, you know, so we get this time to really soak in and enjoy has been awesome.
When you got settled back here in the islands again, what did you realize that you missed so much when you were, you know, going through your pro career on the road?
I think it's just the beauty of Hawaii, to be honest with you. You look at, you know, I mean, I've kind of been everywhere in the world at this point. I mean, sorry, America at this point. You know, I've been to a lot of the states and whatnot, and they're beautiful in their own way. But when you come home, you really appreciate, you know, what makes Hawaii special. You know, the people, the food, culture, just being back home and, you know, having my kids here too, to raise them this way and understanding how big that is huge for us.
Mm-hmm. Growing up in Hilo, born into the famed Wong baseball family,
Yeah.
I'm not even going to ask if you had a choice to play baseball growing up because I'm just imagining it was automatic. It was going to happen. Yeah. What was your earliest memory of playing?
Oh, man. I think it would have to be just, you know, being back home, the days at Walter Victor Park, you know, the little league fields that you kind of grew up, boys and girls clubs back then was a big one for us. And just the guys that, you know, I created lifelong memories with, you know, regardless if they made it or not, how far they went. It was those times that I remember the most is like us playing back then as kids and, you know, trying to win World Series back then for Hilo and doing the cool things like that. So it was fun.
The name of your first ever Little League youth baseball team?
Oof. I think we were the Blue Jays.
Okay.
That's the one picture I can see, but I mean, the one team that we've been my whole life was the Orioles. And anybody you asked from Hilo that we played, like that was our team, was the Orioles always. So
was the competitive nature that we see in youth baseball now, was it the case back then as well when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot more gritty back then when I was growing up. You know, we didn't have so much of the swag and stuff that the kids have nowadays. But no, I mean, I definitely think the game is still the same. You know, kids are still, you know, playing hard. But you know, back then, definitely we took it a little more, you know, serious. Or it wasn't so nice out there, I don't think.
What kind of drills and home training did your dad employ?
My dad was really old school, you know, at everything that he did. You know, we were big on understanding. He told me at a young age I wasn't going to be the biggest guy, but we were going to work on every part of my game to be the best that I could possibly be. So, you know, we would always work on, you know, the ladder drills was a big thing for us. You know, being very good or light-footed, you like to say, and agile, being able to move back and forth. And you know, because that was the biggest thing for us is if I wasn't going to be the biggest, I wanted to be the most athletic, you know. So that was big. And then he always made me I remember we bought a parcel of land when I was probably in my 11, 12-year-old year, and there was a couple of trees, you know, kind of on the thing. And a typical Hilo, you got to clear it out. And the big thing he kind of implemented on us is every day we're going to cut a tree down, me and my brother. And, you know, so he gave us his axe. It was kind of shaped like a little bit of a baseball handle. And we just go in there, and it wasn't big trees, you know, it was just these little ones. But, you know, it was almost that sense of accomplishment you're having every day to just having to chop that thing down. And tell everybody, I think that's where, you know, the little man power kind of came from is, you know, the impact of hitting those trees. It built up the strength that, you know, I had when I played. So
what did your hands look like after?
Oh my God, just ravaged. You know, you're walking back and your hands are just like shaking, trying to give dad back the axe, and it's almost like falling out of your hand. But oh man, it's just the good things you think about for sure.
How instrumental was that discipline and that work ethic in shaping, the kind of journey that you would be going on?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, especially growing up where I grew up. Like there wasn't many examples for us to look up to. Like you had the guys in the big leagues that just kind of seemed like aliens at the time. We were just playing baseball because we loved it. And my dad was just as obsessed as I was in the game. He played at college, played a little bit independent ball, and so having someone who had that love too made it a lot easier for me to kind of chase that dream, even though it seemed impossible.
How often were you traveling for youth ball?
Not very often. I mean, honestly, I'm not going to say that. I would say at least once a year we were going.
Okay.
Because we always would play kind of the it was either Mustangs or Cal Ripken, and so you'd have the state tournament for that. You'd come here, Big Island, Maui, whatever it was, and then if we won that, it was always trying to chase a World Series. So that was always the thing. We'd always be, if we won state, most of the time we were going pretty far. So yeah, I think it was for sure once a year, but it was a lot. It was at least for about a month, of like going one place, playing, winning, sitting there for a week, traveling someplace else, playing, winning, sitting there for another week. So yeah, a lot for sure.
Being retired and now being a father of young boys, what is your perspective and what are your thoughts on kind of the travel schedule and the game baseball regimen that a lot of these families are in right now? It looks like it's on another level.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to touch base on it because I just feel it's outrageous. I mean, I understand, like, parents are trying to do whatever they can for the kids, and I get that. And I was like, but at some point, like, I feel like there needs to be a cutoff, like, age for this. I feel like we're losing, like, the beauty of the 11, 12-year-old, like, chasing a World Series. Like, growing up, like, that was always the pinnacle, was, like, going to Little League World Series, going to Cal World Series, like, these organizations that have been on for years, and then now you have all these travel balls, and kids aren't really worried about chasing, these titles with their friends. They're worried about getting rings for that tournament or rings for this tournament. And the exposure is cool, but, kids grow and they change so much in these years. It's like, I don't care if you're good at 10, 11. You're not going to get a scholarship. Maybe you might, but, there's so much more that you're going to learn as you grow older from your body. So let's just have fun and enjoy with your friends right now until, we really want to sit down and think, is this something we want to be serious with or not?
Was there ever a time growing up that you felt a sense of burnout or wanted to kind of take a break or going too hard on the baseball?
Never, because it was an obsession that I had with the game, but also my dad was really big on me doing other sports. Like I played football my whole life, and then I ran track just to kind of basically learn how to run correctly so that it helped me in baseball and football, and constantly led me just, hanging out with friends. But, the friends were kids that I played with, people that my parents could trust, so it was always the group was always, I guess, controlled, and so it kept me on the right path of, knowing what the right things were to do and being around the right guys.
So you got to see firsthand the benefits of being a multi-sport athlete.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The cross-training that it comes with.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important because every sport gives so much, different values to you as a person. I think football just gave you so much grit and an understanding that if I want something, I got to take it. I got to work for that extra foot or that extra yard to get that first down. Or, and the same with baseball. It's like no one's going to give you your opportunities. You got to go and take it. And it's just the same thing that, so I always implied those different things. Track is like, man, if you want to be better, work on the little things that are going to make you better. I might not be the fastest, but if I can get off the blocks quicker, great. So how am I going to implement that to baseball? If I can work on my pre-pitch step and be the quickest of the pre-pitch step, I'm going to be the fastest guy to the ball. And, I did that for a couple years in a row, just understanding that it's the little things, the little intricate details that really, cause the biggest change in your game or who you are as a person.
So you didn't need to convince your parents that, hey, I want to do football as well.
No. Yeah. I mean,
cool.
Luckily I was in that time too where, there wasn't really a concussion, protocol. And I mean, we had the little things, little cards or what I get to read, but, it was still old school. But, so my dad played football too, all the way through high school. And it was one of those things where, yeah, man, I loved it.
Cards you needed to read?
Yeah, so they'd have these little like plaques, and you had to like basically like read off numbers on these plaques, and they would time it. And then so if you ever had a head incident, they have that reference to go back to, and you have to read it. And if you're slow, it'll be like, oh, this guy's concussed.
Oh man, it sounds so. Look how far we've come.
Oh my goodness.
I think Hawaii high school baseball, especially when you look at the state tournament, it's probably one of the most entertaining state tournament formats that you could have. But I think one of the really special things that you see in the state of Hawaii at the prep level is that no matter where you are, you will be found. So what is it about baseball in Hawaii that lends itself to being discovered regardless of your location?
I think demographically, a lot of people, obviously want to come here. Yeah, but I think it's the ability for these kids to be so well-rounded. We don't really have a winner. We don't really have things that are going to tamper with us being outside and doing things. Regardless if it's football, baseball, tennis, golf, whatever it is, you're outside, you're doing something. And that's the one thing that you hear about, all of us kids that played the game. And it's just like, you guys are so athletic. And it's like, yeah, because we didn't come in expecting to be baseball players. We came in just because we like playing sports, we like competing, and baseball just kind of called us in a direction.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the first time you had scouts coming to watch you in high school?
Honestly, I think the first time was probably at a state tournament.
Okay. But
it wasn't for me. It was kind of just like they were there. And that was the first time I actually was like, oh, wow, that's what it feels like to have scouts, watching a game. I was still young. Even my freshman year, we made state tournament that year. And we're there. And just kind of having that pressure was pretty cool to see and experience for sure.
Who were they there to watch? We don't need to out anybody. I mean,
honestly, hey, you know what? No, shout out. I think it was Kirby Yates at the time, because Kirby was so Kirby's my dog. I got a chance to be really close with Kirby and whatnot. So yeah, I think it's for Kirby Yates. This is back when he's in high school. He started like 95 off the bump, and he was like one of just the guys. I think I remember literally watching him at UH, having my hands on the fence, watching and watching him just dominate. I'm like, damn, this dude's he's really good, and it's like it's just cool to think back on those things. But yeah, it was Kirby Yates they were here to see for sure.
When you were in high school, who were some of the other guys that would go on to have successful careers or were on the radar?
Dustin Antolin was another guy that went on to do some, pitch in the big leagues. Trying to think who else was out there with me.
Because Shane was before your time, right?
Shane was before me. Shane was the example. He was the guy who kind of gave us all that hint, like, man, we can do this. I always kind of looked up to Jimmy Rollins when I was growing up. And then when they kind of started playing together, that's when I first kind of started realizing who Shane was. And then I was like, dang, this guy's from Hawaii? That's awesome. And then you see the size and you see him do his thing and what he's accomplished. And it was like, sweet, I can do this,
Nice.
Yeah.
That's incredible. When the recruiting process started for you, did you know pretty quickly you wanted to stay home?
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of dream for me, number one goal. I was like, if I don't get an opportunity here, I would love to try and, it was here, Texas, just kind of just thinking outside of the box. And, but once I got the opportunity to be here and realized that, they really wanted me here and they wanted to give me an opportunity to play, it was a no-brainer. Growing up in Hilo, this was the big leagues. This was my opportunity to play in front of my family, and I didn't want anything else.
What did staying home at UH give you that you may not have found somewhere else, and the magic of playing in Manoa?
Oh, man, I think it's definitely the pride, of playing with that Hawaii across your chest was something I always took pride in. And, you can see in the way that I played the game, it was just so much passion because I made it, and it was I tell everybody, I love the fact that I was in the big leagues and I had a great time when I was there. I was like, but my big leagues was always UH.
And plus, too, coming out of high school, you had gotten drafted, decided to stay in school.
Yeah.
What was your perspective of getting that call and kind of the decision-making process with your family of okay, no, college is the better option?
That's tough, because like I said, we kind of came from, I came from a humble family, and it was I had a chance to make, what was it, 5 figures, basically almost 6 figures, and it's to turn that down, knowing, how much at the time that was, it was a hard decision, but I just knew I wasn't ready. I was I'd never been away from home, never been away from my family. I was for me to be gone for, 4 to 6 months out of the, after this and be in some random city in the Midwest, I was man, I can't do this. And talked to my dad and kind of had to convince him, and it ended up working out. So we're
your
good.
Dad wanted you to take it.
I mean, I think it was just a goal that we all kind of had, and you don't hear people getting drafted from Hilo, Hawaii, so it was one of those things. He was like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." I was like, and like, hopefully this is just the beginning, and it was one of those things where, thank God we did, but never know what could have happened if I would have took the draft, but I'm definitely excited with the path that I ended up choosing.
And that's a huge credit to you for realizing early on too, like I'm not ready yet.
No.
How instrumental were those next years in college for you in shaping your evolution physically, just growing up and being ready for pro ball?
Oh my God, crazy. Because I mean, they talk about the freshman 15. I think I came into college at 155 and I ended up going home at like 185, 190, after just the first couple months of the year. And I was also a gym rat too, but bad diet and working out all the time. It's not the best combination for baseball. So it was funny, man. I definitely put on a lot of weight, but just you learn so much just about who you are. You get the freedom in college to kind of just be crazy, and hopefully you're not too crazy where you get in trouble. But it's just enjoying that time of being a kid, but still being free. But then again, you still have the books. You still have school that you have to worry about. Like the time management that's important for you as a student athlete. So I honestly think I try to tell a lot of kids I think it's important for you to go to college unless you are like a top 2-3 rounds. Like it makes a lot of sense for you to go to college just from what you gain personally.
What was the driving force behind the bad diet? Did you
7-Eleven right down there, right below Manoa? Oh my God! I think it was we had a Sodexo too that was right there. Oh my God! I used to crush those bentos at least twice a day.
This is before too. I feel like there was a greater focus on having a solid training table. It was just like, we need to just get these athletes food so you can just eat anything.
Yeah,
right?
It was all about bulking at the time, like bulk. So we were just like, whatever. It didn't matter. I remember a couple of the guys, we got in this little thing where every night we eat a peanut butter or what's it called, a banana, and we just eat like half a peanut butter tub. It was just, you're just trying to bulk up and get big. You thought that was it.
Right. Your proudest moment at UH for you?
Probably us going to the regional, I would say. Obviously just doing that and how long it was before we did that. We had a special team that year too. We had some, it was just such a unique team. We had, guys like Lenny Linsky, where we're there and really good players. Alex Capal, a lot of guys, Blair Walters, I think, got drafted too. So we had a really good team that year that ended up doing something special. Obviously, we ended up playing against ASU and walked into a tough team, but yeah, just to get there with the guys was probably the biggest thing for not just me, but for everybody here.
What did it sound like when Mike Trapasso would have to motivate you guys and discipline this team?
Polls. It was polls. He loved the double triangles. But I honestly tell everybody, I was like, the cool thing with Trap and the thing that I liked with Trap is if you took care of your business and you did what you needed to do on the field, he left you alone. He wasn't going to come and try and change you in any way or tell you what to do. It was, listen, you want to earn the right to play the game you want to play, do it on the field. You respect me, you respect your teammates, do it on the field, you do what you want. And, I respected that because I was a big guy on, going and hitting before the game. Me and my pops would go to Colony High School and we'd hit before every single game. That was like a thing we did because I was like, man, I just want to be ready. And then you have teammates, you have one batting cage at UH, so you don't get as much swings that you necessarily want. So that was a thing that we did, and Trap was always cool with it.
That was your game day routine?
Every day.
How early are we starting?
So 7 o'clock game, probably. Dad picked me up around like 12:31-ish, and then we'd go hit for about a good hour and a half, and then come in, stop on the 7-Eleven right there in what is it called? Kapahulu. I think it's the one. Anyways.
Oh, the one
when you're coming down.
On Waialae.
Waialae, there you go, Waialae one. Yes.
So your dad would even still take you to 7-Eleven.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. No, it's a funny story. I remember when I was we were playing Loyola Marymount, and I am having a 3-homer game that day, and after that, we're in the car, we're talking about the game. My dad's like, "Hey, you remember what we ate for lunch that day?" I was like, what was it? He goes, salmon salad. He goes, we're going to eat salmon salad again tomorrow. And it's funny because like I ended up eating salmon salad the next day and going, I think I went like 3 for 4 or 4 for 5, something like that. Literally for the next week, I just ate salmon salad every single day. And gladly it finally wore off. But yeah, it was just like the funny things that you think about now is like, the little things we used to do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
7-Eleven salmon salad.
Oh,
the superfood right there.
Hey, low-key hits too. It's good for that nice little spurt you need. It gives you a little sugar too with the sauce.
Well, it's good that you're back home. One of the great things, and just it's so gratifying to see that when you go to games at Les Murakami Stadium, your number is up there on that wall. And you have just an immortal place in University of Hawaiʻi baseball lore. What does that mean to you and your family?
Oh, it's everything. It wasn't an expectation when I came to UH. It was just like, I'm glad to be here. Like this is everything for me. And then like to look back now and see, I think when you look back, it's like, holy smokes, like the travel and like the amount of things that you did as a player to get to this point, and then to be gifted that is just, it's really cool.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it hit your parents.
Oh,
when they found out,
hit all of us, and you're just like, wow, like to get appreciated that much, and just humbling for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're in the middle of a conversation with Kolten Wong on the Long Game Podcast. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
From the moment you wake up,
Hawaii News Now brings you the stories that impact your day.
With more on the breaking news, we go live to Casey Lund.
Ready with the push alert? I'm going live. We have an update to the breaking news we brought you this morning on Sunrise.
Okay, guys, as soon as this wraps, toss to Mahea.
And we've been covering this story all day.
Now we go live to Mahea for a new development.
Stand by for breaking news. They just captured the suspect.
That's confirmed?
Yes, sources just confirmed it.
The news you need the moment it breaks.
Here on Hawaii News Now.
First alert traffic is like always having a helpful passenger right next to you.
There's a crash up ahead in the left lane.
When we see a backup, we'll tell you live on TV.
That doesn't look too good.
And send an alert to your phone.
I'll type, you drive.
First alert traffic on TV, streaming, and on the Hawaii News Now app.
Keeping you and your ohana safe.
And welcome back to The Long Game. We're here with Kolten Wong, talking story. Kolten, this is great stuff. Okay, so you get drafted out of high school. You decide to play your college ball at UH. 3 years later, you decide, okay, pro ball is here.
Yep. Take
me to draft day for you. What do you remember about the day you got the call to join the Cardinals?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, it's the kind of thing you watch on TV, So when you're living it out, it's like, man, this is kind of like I'm living out someone else's life, But it was cool. Obviously, I talked to the Cardinals, I think, one time before the whole draft, so they weren't really on my radar at the time. I got a call, I think, the 10th pick, Got a call the 10th pick. It was the Padres. And they're like, hey, we're thinking about taking you right now. Just be ready. We're not sure exactly what the pick's going to be. They ended up going with Corey Spangenberg, I think, at the time. And, happily so because, I think, was that 11 picks later, the Cardinals ended up calling me. And it's such a cool thing to have done it at home. I was at home at my uncle's house. We had all the family over, and it was just such a special time of just being able to, I guess, enjoy this with everybody who was a part of the whole thing. I had all the coaches, had my dad, family guys, my mom, everybody was there. And, even a couple of teammates. So it was definitely a cool vibe for sure.
How intense is the draft process and the meetings that you have to go through with these front offices and the scouts?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get super intense until you're getting close or you are a top guy. If they're seeing you as a top pick, then you start to do some of the eye test and some of the mental evals. But those are just questions that they kind of have on papers for you to fill out and kind of see. It's not as intense as these other ones, of course, but yeah, I think it's just more intense for the higher picking guys for sure.
Mm-hmm. The Cardinals have long been an organization with a reputation of being exceptional at developing young talent. Was that something you noticed pretty early on?
Oh, absolutely. And to this day, I thank the Cardinals for the career that I had because they taught me so much about the little things, you know, just about like how to create a routine for getting ready for 142 games, where I came out of college playing 52, 56. You know, so they did that. They put me in this class. It was a speech class, but it was one of those things where you learned how to give interviews, you learn how to answer tough questions, you learn how to do these different things, you know. So they implemented all these things to get us ready and prepared for the media and for the big lights. And to this day, I look back and I'm like very thankful for all those things, for sure.
It seems like it's a crash course then when they bring in their young guys. It's like, okay, we're going to have a standard here across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world, right? You have your top prospects kind of doing these classes, but it makes sense. It's like you invest all these money in these guys that, you know, when they get to the top, you want to show your finished product. You want to show, how, you know, why your investment was worth it. So, you know, I look back at those days and, you know, I don't know how they did it at any other organization because I wasn't, you know, young back then at any of those. But, yeah, just how the Cardinals did it, I just felt like was so professional, and it made it comfortable to kind of take the next step to the next, I guess, you know, league and AA and the AAA. And then, you know, it was right when I think AA was when I started those classes, and then AAA was already a time when you were about to get up there. But just giving interviews, you know, and stuff like that made it so much simpler. So it was really cool by them.
What stood out to you most about the minor league system?
I think it was the grind that was pretty cool, but it's just one of those things. The minor league system it's tough. You know, it's one of those things where you see guys that are really good, but you know, sometimes there's no path for them. You know, like they're just kind of fill guys, you know, and it's one of those things where it's a dog-eat-dog world, and you learn right away it's not the same game you were playing. You know, it's strictly a business. So you would see guys get released and, you know, guys, you know, crying and whatnot, and it's tough, man. You're just like, oh, that could be me, you know, and but at the end, then again, you have the cool experiences of you being on, you know, 13, 15-hour bus rides with some random guys from Alabama that you never knew, you know, but you're in the back playing cards with them. You guys are, you know, having a few drinks and just hanging out, and, you know, you're buds at the time. You know, you're literally living with each other. You're at the field all day, every day. So it's the cool thing of the beauty and the beast of pro baseball that you kind of see as a player that makes you realize, man, I got to stay on my grind. You know, it's like I got to focus.
Yeah, I was going to say, because how do you balance that dynamic where it's like, you can imagine, you know, college and high school, we're all playing together as a team.
Yep.
But once you get to the professionals, it's okay, I could be friends with somebody that's in the same position as me, but at the same time, there's a depth chart here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the good thing, too, is, I mean, there's guys who take it the wrong way and guys who don't, you know, but it's one of those things where iron sharpens iron has always been kind of the mentality that I had is, you know, like, I want you to push to be your best because it's going to push me to be even better, you know, and if I can't get there, you deserve it, you know, and it's one of those things where a lot of the guys that I was in that situation with, we all kind of knew. I mean, and then again, like, luckily I was a first rounder, so I had the respect from a lot of guys because they, you know, they just understand the I guess, how things kind of fall, you know, and so there's a respect, but they still pushed me. They still made me earn, you know, being a first rounder, or earn being out there playing, you know, when they were playing here last year, or they were playing before I got drafted, you know, so it's just one of those things where it was really good for me as a young guy to get that right away.
There was a moment back when I was doing sports anchoring, we were running Memphis Redbirds highlights every day for weeks on end because you're always doing something, and it was always so cool to see. So you got called up pretty quickly and, you know, ascended through the organization. When you got to the majors, were there any, what were some of the perks that surprised you and kind of just the next adjustment level that it took once you get called up to the big show? Yeah,
I mean, oh, my goodness. You know, it's such a big jump when you go from AAA to the big leagues. You know, you talk about going from flying at 4:30 in the morning, you know, to a AAA stadium to play that day, to, you know, being on a private jet, flying, you know, to the next state, you know, after that game, you know, and being able to just hang out with, you know, those guys. You're playing cards and basically a free for all kind of on that airplane of just walking around and chatting, having fun, and, you know, but then again, there's the pressure of being up there, you know, of understanding the little intricate details that they expect where you're still learning in AAA, you know, the things that you're still trying to figure out they're expected at that level. It's the little things that they hold you accountable to that, is the biggest change. And it's one of those things where you got to kind of experience it up there to know, what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's those little details of understanding how to be a big leaguer is what I tell people. It's like, you can tell the difference in a guy who's been there for a while and a guy who hasn't, strictly by how they carry themselves and the way that they go about their business, and it's no knock on you being young. It's just, you can tell. And, so you learn those things. And, luckily for me, like I had, like you said, those guys and like John Jay and, Matt, that really helped me kind of, I guess, ease over those bumps a little quicker.
You're talking about intricacies of it's a matter of not freaking out at a strikeout or anything like that, or a bad game. Like, don't let it affect you long term.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much things, because you think about it, you're playing every single day. Monday through Sunday, there's no off. I mean, you have your off days. I think it's 10 off days per month or something like that, maybe. But I might be wrong. I'm sorry. That sounds like a lot. But anyways, yeah, it's one of those things you're constantly grinding and whatnot. So, man, you just got to understand, like, you can learn from, I tell everybody, like, I've never failed. I've always been learning. Like, regardless of what has happened to me in my career, it was always learning experiences that made me to where I am today. And it's like the same thing with hitting. It's like, if I struck out the first 2 times, like, I was frustrated, yeah, but I'm trying to watch, maybe if I can get video, perfect. Let me see why I'm striking out, like figuring out that thing instead of just sitting there and sulking. Like, so I tell a lot of kids, man, I was like, just understand, like, the little things that you're failing at right now are the things that are going to help you catapult you to be the player you want to be later. I was like, those are the things that you're going to fuel to want to get better at. Those are the things you're going to chase, and like, if you want to be good at this game, you have to be obsessed. You have to be at a point where, like, I want to be good at how I walk, how my pre-pitch step, how my feet are landing. It gets to that point where, like I tell people, you got to go crazy in this game. Like, you want to be great, you got to go crazy, because it takes that to get to the next level. Because we're not only competing against kids in California, like Texas, Florida. You got kids in Japan. You got Dominican who's throwing out kids, out of their academies every single year that seem to be the next big Tatis or Ellie De La Cruz, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, all these places, and you're looking at the continents now that are bringing kids over. I've played with pretty much somebody from every single continent at this point. And it's like, what are we in Hawaii going to do to change that route and make us stand out? It's crazy.
The biggest lesson that adversity taught you that success couldn't?
Oh, man. Shucks. That's never as bad as it seems. Think about it. I got picked off in 2013 World Series. Yeah, those just got called up August 13th of that year. So I literally just turned 23 in October 10th, during the World Series. But yeah, man, that was one of the toughest times of my life, because I was going through that. I ended up losing my mom too in 2013 that year, that off season. So it was just like back-to-back punches to the face. But it was like, I think it took me like 2 years to finally get over it. And then I was like, man, you know what? Like, I've been here. Like, I've been at the lowest part. Like, if I can get out of this and I can keep playing, I've been in the big leagues for 2 years now. Like, nothing's going to affect me. Nothing's going to hurt me. Like, I've been the lowest. Like, now let's just go. And yeah, that was the biggest freeing moment for me as a person, as a player, for sure.
That sat with you for 2 years?
I would say, yeah, about 2 years. It was, yeah, the pickoff for sure. Because it was one of those things where, like I said, you got to be a perfectionist in this game. You got to be obsessed. And it's like, base running was something that I obsessed with. It was like, I took real, like, pride in, like, understanding how to, like, base run correctly. I love, like, having, 27 stolen bases and 25, and getting thrown out, 2 times. Like, stuff like that was always, like, cool for me. And then, so when that hit me, I was like, dang, man, that wasn't, anything but a mental lapse. And so it was one of those things where it affected me for a while. But I think after, really thinking about it, it just, like, opened up. I'm like, you know what, man? You've been at the bottom. You're still in the big leagues. Like, forget about it. Let's see how good we can be now.
You handled it gracefully. I still remember that post-game interview and just kind of feeling like, oh, my gosh, how painful this must have to be. But who were some of the guys within the organization that picked you up. And I can imagine, given the Cardinals culture, it's like, dude, it wasn't all because of that.
Yeah,
Okay?
no. Obviously, Carlos Beltran was one of the first guys that came up to me when that whole thing went down, and he, was like, hey, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it. Like, we still got to, and unfortunately it sucked because we ended up losing, the World Series that year. But yeah, he was a big guy. Adam Wainwright, countless other guys just all kind of came up and were like, hey, but dude, like, you're okay. It's like 23 years old, you just get to the big leagues and you get picked off in the World Series. And it's like, oh, but like I said, it's one of those things I would never change. I tell everybody, like, I would never change that about my life. It's like, because it just showed me so much resilience about myself.
And that's one of the things I feel for guys like Isaiah,
Yeah.
in this past year, because he was getting crushed over what happened about not taking a bigger league at third. I'm like, you got to look at a game. So many different things happen. And that is just one aspect right there.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, too, you think about it, I feel like that whole story is so just wishy-washy. Something about, like, I saw that the coach came out saying that he told Isaiah to not get doubled off, so make sure your lead's not that big. So there's all these other things that come into play that people don't know and people don't hear, or they're not a part of the meetings and they don't understand what he's trying to do. Could he have been a little cleaner? Of course. We all could have been a little better at some point, but it's like there's nothing that could be changed at that point. That's the beauty of baseball, right? It's like you're going to have the heroes and you're going to have the villains. It's like me and Isaiah have been the villains, and then we're still doing it. He's still having an amazing career, and he's going to continue, so it's not the end.
How beneficial was repeated reps every day, being an everyday major league player and helping you kind of shake that off and also help with your development as a player?
Oh, so much. I tell everybody at a young age, it's just repeated reps. It's constantly putting in swings. No matter if it's good reps or bad reps, I just want kids to just constantly be swinging because you're just trying to learn the difference between what feels good to you and what doesn't feel good to you. And then once you understand that, then we can really start implementing like the most important things that you need to be a successful hitter, and then if you get to that next level, then, okay, we can start tuning you, to start understanding the main things that can take you to the next level. And it's one of those things where everything comes as a process. And I think going through my career and the things that I've been through, I've realized how important the process is and to never overlook, the little steps that are getting you to where you want to be.
It's funny you mentioned the World Series because the next year you're an everyday starter, a career season, you're red hot. What clicked for you? What was it, the adversity from the past year, or just kind of like how to get into that zone? What unlocked it?
Yeah, I think it was the fear, honestly. I think just getting picked off and all that happening. And I remember going to that off season and I didn't want to leave the cage. I didn't want to leave the weight room. I didn't want to leave the field. I was just like, I wanted to keep my attention strictly on baseball. And I was like, I'm not going to let that decide who I am or determine, the player that I want to be. So it was like, it was a mission that I had, and it was pretty fun, man, because it was the first year that I actually just like didn't let any of the outside noise get to me. Didn't think about anything. It wasn't on social media, but just locked in. And like I felt like almost like that animal instinct, like not talking to friends, not talking to family, and I was just like, for 2 months straight, I just didn't do anything but just train.
Did you feel like you're in a different person, so to speak, or like not in a bad way, but you've kind of channeled a new energy?
Yeah. It was one of those things where you had, because I'd always watch guys and I would see, how they seem like two different people on the field and off the field, right? And I was like, man, why are they like that? And that's when I started talking to guys. I started to listen to, podcasts and reading books and whatnot, and started to learn about the alter ego aspect and how, it's very important for you as a player or as a competitor to have that, because it's not easy to turn off being who you are as a person. And the majority of the people, we're just all humans, right? We're we play baseball at a high level, play whatever sport, but we're humans, but it's that mental aspect that gets you to that athlete that a lot of other people can't be. And, so once I learned about the alter ego, that was the biggest thing for me, was buying into it and selling out. And it took me a while because, like I said, I was still scared, about the pickoff from the year before, but it got to a point where I started, and it wasn't me being scared, it was me just saying F it.
Who were some of the shining examples for you of guys on the field who like perfected the alter ego aspect that you saw, like, oh, wow, like, there's a different personality out here?
Yeah. Like I said, Jimmy Rollins is always my guy. I felt like he was humble. Like when I would see him do interviews and talk to people, I felt like he was very humble. But when you watch him play, man, he just has such a swag about him, and he just carried himself for such a, like, he's not a big guy. I got the opportunity to meet Jimmy a couple of times now, and, he's probably my height, a little taller than me. But man, I looked at him like he was 6 feet tall, like he was my idol.
So the year that you decide to say F it, one of the great highlights that we see is playoffs, walk-off home run against the San Francisco Giants. Take us into that moment. How do you describe that feeling?
Yeah, that was crazy. Like I said, the fear was still kind of with me at the time. I'm like, oh my God, I'm back in the playoffs again. And like the last time was not good, but it was one of those things, like I said, like then the F-head mentality and the ultra ego kind of kicked in for me. And it was like, oh, this is your time to do it. This is your time to, and like you said, I was given the opportunity that year. I earned the opportunity to finally be the guy to play every day. When I got picked off, I was kind of sitting on the bench, kind of in la la land, as a young 22, 23-year-old guy would be, just kind of soak it in the World Series. But I was there, I was a part of this team, and I'm expected to contribute, So it was one of those things where it was good to have that pressure and the ability to earn, what was taken from me the year before.
As soon as you hit that ball, you knew it already?
Honestly, no. Yeah, I knew I barreled it really good, but Busch that's a tough ballpark to hit a home run in. I know I barreled it good, but just the trajectory off the bat, I wasn't too. So like when I was coming around first, I was coming around hot. It wasn't a pimp job or anything.
That's awesome. What's one thing most people don't understand about life as a professional athlete?
Oh, everybody thinks we're so rich all the time. Like, yeah, you sign these deals that are amazing, man, but there's so much other bills that come into it. You're moving 4 times a year. You have, you got to ship your car, pretty much 2 or 4 times a year, or you're paying, to rent a car for 2 months or 6 months out of the season. It was expensive for me too, because I'm coming back to Hawaii, and then hanging out here. But yeah, it's just like, I think there's so much other facets that come into being a really good professional baseball player that takes away a lot of the money that people see that we earn. It's like, it's expensive to be, to get all the equipment so that you can stay on the field and stay healthy. It's expensive, to get the massages and to have the trainers and to tip them at the end of the season. For all the hard work that they put in, they deserve it. But, that comes out of players' pockets, not the front office. So you're tipping at the end of the season, sometimes, 4 to 5 figures, tops, like, a good amount of money for a lot of these guys, especially when you're a rookie. And then during the off season, they don't pay for your training, so you're paying out of pocket for all your own training, your recovery. You're paying guys to kind of feed you, or even if you're trying to eat clean, that's expensive, and it's just like, you don't get paid during the off season. I don't know if I said that already. But yeah, so it's just one of those things. I think you're starting to hear it a lot more now in sports. It's like, yeah, the money is thrown out there, how much we make, but it's not thrown out by, how much it costs to keep your body at elite levels.
Mm-hmm. Also, too, how much did you find that the mental aspect came into really play more of a prominent role in life as a major leaguer, compared to all your other years of playing it, rather than the physical aspect?
Oh, it was one of those things where I feel like I wish it wasn't so late to the party when they started putting more light on that, because it's hard, to go through to the minor leagues and to work your way up there. You go through so much trials and tough times and being alone and stuff like that. And, you kind of go through some crazy stuff, and it's like, I think it's good that now they're starting to get guys out there in the minor leagues. I think majority of minor league organizations have people there for them to talk to, just to kind of keep them, going right. Because you hear about it all the time, guys, committing suicide or trying to. It's just like, it's a tough game. It definitely eats at you, especially when you're going through it. But, that's how I tell people. I was like, it's a good thing, because it's almost similar to life, right? It's like, you look at life, and life will always punch you in the mouth. And it's like baseball, like, you can appreciate the little successes you get because you understand that you're always, going to fail in this game. So it's just getting you ready for what life has at stake.
You hear from a lot of professional athletes that when they have successful moments, the feeling isn't so much elation as much as it is relief. Did you find that as you would go through the course of your career?
For sure. Because it's just and it's nothing, I think towards the end of my career, it was nothing to do with the outside pressures. It was always to do with me and the things that I was holding myself, the standard that I was holding myself to. You know, it was like I only won 2 Gold Gloves. My goal was to win 5, you know, so I was so detailed and locked in with how I had my process, you know, and then I started getting moved and traded and whatnot, and then the process changes with the coach and things change. And, you know, it's one of those things where it's just like you have to be very locked into who you are and what you're doing. You're just hoping that it works out, you know, and when it does, you're like, thank God. You know, I didn't make a fool out of myself. It's just because the game is tough, especially when you're under a microscope like you are. No matter what you're playing, you know, someone's gonna have something to say about you, and regardless of if you want it to affect you or not, it's going to.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to circle back to this. When you got called up to the majors for the first time,
yeah,
how did it play out? Was it you were at a AAA game and you had to leave immediately? How did it go?
No, so I was actually at the hotel. It was the morning before our game. We were in Colorado Springs, and get a knock at like 7 a.m. Or I think it was like 9 a.m. I was still sleeping. Open the doors. My head coach, he's like, hey, you mind if I come in? I'm like, yeah, sure. My roommate was Greg Garcia at the time, and he actually went to breakfast, I think, with his dad. And so he came in, he told me the news, and I remember closing the door, and then kind of just sitting down around the door, calling my parents, and then telling them, you know, obviously waterworks, we're all crying and whatnot, and I'm telling them, like, okay, I'm gonna be in Chicago, you know, we're gonna be playing against the Cubs. So it was one of those things where it's not like it's that easy to book a flight from Hilo to Chicago, you know, for the next day. But luckily, my parents were able to kind of get the flights together and get everything booked, and you know, they were able to meet me there.
What would you consider to be the most meaningful part of your professional career?
The journey, for sure. Just like the ups and downs of like learning the game, because like I say, it's like I learned so much about myself as a person more than I did about the game. You know, like obviously I feel like I've done, like I tell my dad this today, I feel like I did everything I could to get the most out of myself in this game. You know, it's like I look back, there's nothing I can say I didn't try or I didn't do. You know, it's like I tried all these different swings that, you know, some of these guys did. I've tried different bats in my work. I've tried, you know, just constantly wanting to adapt and change. And yeah, man, that was just the biggest thing, is just like I always was willing to adapt to it.
When you became a pro, what became your new 7-Eleven Soman salad?
Oh, see, that was the good thing with pro baseball. It was like we had some chefs that would cook for us when you got to the big leagues too, so you had to pick and choose what you wanted. And luckily, it was different every day, so I couldn't pull the Soman salad. It was definitely some breakfasts that my wife would make that I would probably end up having her do when I was going off. I think it was one she did like this baked oatmeal, and it wasn't healthy at the time, you know, because so I think it was like oatmeal baked with like brown sugar and all these things, and had some blueberries and strawberries with some white chocolates. But I remember going off one day, I went like 4 for 4, and literally for like that, she made a pan, and it was meant for like all of our roommates. After that game, I think I took the pan. I was like, hey, boys, this is off limits until I stop hitting like that. Nobody's touching this but me. Everyone was like, hey, yo, let me get some. No, listen, go make some more. I was like, this pan is mine.
Nice. It's everybody is on a hot streak right
exactly.
now. You know? What is something that you learned the value of later in your career that you wish you realized earlier when you were starting out?
Man, it's the same answer. The process.
Yeah.
I really do. Man, I wish like I understood how important I was as a player. Is like really buying into what you're trying to be good at and locking into a process. And I feel like I don't think I would have been a better player. I think I would have my adjustments would have been faster. You know, my adjustment to the game would have been quicker if I would have just bought into understand, like keep my head down and buy into the process. And eventually when I play the game, that'll show up. Instead of, you know, I was trying to listen to everybody and do these things while keep my head up, you know, in the lights and enjoying the big league life. And it was like, if I would have just locked in, like things might have clicked faster, and who knows what would have happened. But yeah, so just for sure, like I tell all the kids, like embrace the process. It's like once you embrace the process of the game, and you don't worry about all the other things, like then you start to realize like the emotional part of the game is gone. I was like, I'm not failing, I'm learning, because like I'm just trusting the process is eventually going to show up when it needs to. And that's the biggest thing, is like I wish I would have had the mentality at a younger age. It's like I don't care about the results here and now, because then I'm not going on the high and lows of being happy, being sad, being happy, being pissed. It's like, no, I understand the process eventually going to pay off. It's just when it does, it's going to happen.
Realizing the importance and value of consistent excellence.
Absolutely.
You're somebody who's retired. You're in your mid-30s.
Yeah.
Believe you and I are the same age.
Yeah.
2008 alums.
Yep.
Okay. So what's your next big adventure?
Honestly, right now, I'm just kind of just being super dad, trying to at least. I was like, and you got 2 boys. I think anybody out there knows, it's not that easy, but they're awesome, man. I have such a good time with them. They're 2 totally different kids. And, so it's cool that I get to kind of separate, and see how to treat each one and be the dad that I want to be.
How many people have asked if you do private lessons and clinics?
Man.
You get this all the time.
I do. I get this a lot, but I'm sorry. I haven't started anything yet. My brother, Kean, he's got a year of big league time. He's been doing lessons for a little bit now, but I think I'll eventually get into it. I really want to get into coaching. I just don't know exactly when, because I'm like, I want to do these things. I have all these plans, but I also don't want to give away the time with my kids, So I'm just like, I'm being a little stingy on that end, but, eventually I'll give my time once I feel it's right.
Plus, too, that, how it works, right? Like, once you start, that's it.
It's all in. And especially for somebody like me, too, like, once I start, like, oh, man, like, it's going to be tough, because, like, I'm going to want the kids to understand, like, bro, if we can grasp the concept of what is important in this game, and you buy into the process with me, I don't know how good we can make you, but we're going to make you as good as you possibly can be. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can offer.
Yeah.
You
talk about process and the importance of that, but, because you're back home and you're around the game, you're seeing it at the youth level, what would you say is the biggest favor these kids and families can do for themselves when starting out?
There's one quote that I kind of live by, and it really just always comes back to me. It's like, there's no such thing as lazy kids. They're just lazy parents. So I really believe that at the end of the day, it comes down, if you want your kids to be successful, you gotta go out there and you gotta make it happen. And my dad was instrumental in that for me, and I'm trying to do that with my kids.
The current trend in baseball that you're pleased with how it's going, and the current trend in baseball that drives you crazy.
Man. So the current trend in baseball that I would say is driving me crazy is analytics in young kids. I'm seeing that used a lot, and I'm seeing parents talk about like swing speed and exit velos and stuff. And I'm like, if your kid is hitting, $120 and you're worried about exit velos, like, what are we doing? Like, this isn't a strongest man competition. Understand that your kids, let's make them good hitters. And then eventually we can understand what makes them a good hitter and how we can implement them to create separation to get the power, instead of you guys just doing these things and everyone's like, yeah, my kid hit a ball. And I don't even know what is equivalent, for
right.
like 70 miles an hour or something. And I'm like, that's cool. Was it an out or was it a hit? And I was like, oh, it was an out. I'm like, okay, like, what are we doing? Teach the kids at that point, especially at the young age, just teach them how to compete and hit. Bat to ball skills. If you can understand that and understand how to do it correctly, then we can implement your body. But once you have all these things going in your head, like I talk to some of these kids and they're like worried about their back hip and stuff. I was like, dude, I didn't learn back hip stuff until I was in the big leagues. And now you guys are talking about this. It's like, I can tell you what, but I'm pretty sure I was a better hitter than you, back then. Well, I learned about my back hip. I was like,
oh, man. What's something that you like seeing that encourages you?
I think just the attention to detail that parents have, and it's not so much like they're like, I appreciate them sending their kids to get work with, coaches and the right coaches and doing these little things, especially the game is so hard to teach. I'm learning that now with my kids I'm trying to teach my son how to field, and it's like, I'm like, dude, I want 2 gold gloves, and I cannot explain to this little 4-year-old how to field a ground ball. So, we're trying the whole alligator thing right now, and it's been kind of working. So I'm going on that. But yeah, man, it's the little things I feel like that parents can do or are continuing to do, and then that's going to make the big dividends. Is like the attention to detail so that your kids understand why these things are important.
How valuable and underrated is tee work?
See, I'm very torn with tee work just because I think I've been at the highest level where I understand the values and benefits, but I also understand like what it can do to a person's swing.
Because it will make it robotic, or
so I mean, basically, as a hitter, when everybody was taught, we were taught down to hit down the baseball, which I mean, for the most part, is correct, right? But it's still, you don't want it to be so steep where your bat is in and out of the strike zone, So I think the tee kind of allows kids, or gives kids the bad feedback of it. When I chop down on tee and I backspin a ball to the back of the cage, that's a good swing. Well, in reality, I mean, it's teaching the kids kind of the right swing, but it's not showing them exactly what would happen in a real game situation. Like I'm a big fan of over the top, or I would kind of, when I played with the Dodgers, actually, Mookie was huge in this draw, and I fell in love with it. And it was just like the coach would be on one knee, and he'd be behind the tee or the cage, and he'd just be flipping balls, just like nice and easy, just short throws. But it was something that was so good because I think because of him being down, he had to angle it a little bit higher.
Okay.
And the trajectory was good because it made you, as a hitter, you want, calm, straight shoulders, kind of on plane of where you're trying to swing. So it made you keep your shoulders correctly. And, I felt like I understood the angle of where I needed to be as a hitter a lot better. So I think there's definitely, pluses and minuses at a young age for sure. But as we get older and we're starting to groom them into like wanting to be consistent and good hitters, I think top hand, bottom hand for sure is good training, but after that, that's probably the most I would do.
I also feel too, and feel free to correct me on this here, but like, I feel at the youth level, and if you're having a coach pitch situation, we're having a situation where kids don't know when to not swing at bad pitchers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a thing? Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a bad habit that I want to get away from here.
No, it's one of those things too. It's like when they swing at bad pitches, you're like, okay, you know what? Yeah, you're swinging at bad pitches, but at least you're aggressive.
Okay.
Because that's the one thing that I tell a lot of parents. I'm like, man, you can't teach aggressiveness. You can't teach your kid to want to go on attack, want to go and steal that base. And you can tell them to, but at the end of the day, they got to do it. And it's like, oh, so if you have a kid, like, that's what I tell my son when he hits. I'm like, dude, I don't care if you swing and miss. Just swing hard. Break this ball. I was like, that's a piñata. Like, there's candy in there. So when he swings, sometimes he'll grunt. I'll be like, yeah. I'm like, I don't really care if he hits it or not. Like, if he does, cool. But I'm just like, if we can keep that aggressiveness, then we can control that. Like, it's hard to make a kid be aggressive.
I know that you're not trying to coach right now, but people are going to be listening to you talking baseball, and you're going to be bothered a lot more at Little League games more than you already are.
No, man, no. I tell everybody it's funny because, I always would tell my wife, I was like, I love signing autographs. I love talking to people because at one point, there's going to be a time where no one's going to want to talk to me. And like, you're going to be the old guy in the corner and be like, oh, yeah, that guy played in the big leagues like back in like 2000 something, and it's like, oh. So I enjoy, talking. And I had a lot of conversations with the guys, and they want to ask questions. I'm like, please, bro. Like, I'll answer it the best way I can. It might not be correct to another guy, but I'm a 5'7", 170-pound guy that played 11 years. Like, this is how I'm going to tell you how I think it should work.
I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
The most valuable piece of advice that changed your life?
Man, this is just another baseball one again. This was right when I remember my first year going into spring training, and we have team meetings kind of throughout the spring training, and this was Major League Players Alumni Association. And I'm actually cool with those guys now because I'm on this side. But one of the main guys was talking, and he said a quote, and he goes, you're going to be retired a lot longer than you're going to be a player. And after that meeting, I was like blown away. I was like, holy smokes. I never heard that until now. And it's like, yeah, you realize that because I'm at the pinnacle of the game. Like I better enjoy this. I don't know if it's going to be 2 years. I don't know if it's going to be 10. I don't know if maybe I'm done after this month. Like, but man, it's crazy how much that hits. And even now, I mean, I had 11 years in the big leagues, and I look, and I'm like, man, I'm 35 years old. What do I do now? You know, it's like, enjoy it, because you can't control it. I couldn't control if I wanted to go back or not. Like, that was just, I found my way out of, you know, having a tough season, and that's just how the game works.
Beautifully said.
No.
And that does hit, man. It does hit. But with that said, you're retired. You're back home. We're glad that you're back home. You're an invaluable resource.
I appreciate it.
Kolten Wong, thank you for being here. That was fun.
No, thanks for having me, man. This is always fun to talk with you and chop it up, Phil.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So,
awesome.
And don't bother him at baseball games, okay? All right, he'll answer the questions, but come on, he wants to enjoy. That's another edition of the Long Game Podcast. You can always find us on the H&N streaming app or wherever you get your pods. Aloha.